In the dusty corners of Gatcombe Park, Princess Anne's countryside estate, a groundskeeper made a discovery that would send shockwaves through the British royal family and captivate the world. Hidden beneath decades of accumulated papers in an old wooden chest, a single envelope bore the unmistakable handwriting of Diana Spencer, the people's princess who had died tragically in Paris 27 years earlier. The letter, sealed and never opened, was addressed to "My dearest," and in Diana's flowing script. What secrets had Diana entrusted to her sister-in-law? What truths had remained buried all these years? As news of the letter's discovery leaked to the press, the world held its breath, wondering what revelations about the royal family, about Diana's final months, and about the complex relationship between two of Britain's most fascinating women would finally come to light. The letter that Diana had written and had never received was about to reveal a story of sisterhood, rivalry, love, and betrayal that would change how the world remembered both princesses forever. The morning mist hung low over Gatcombe Park as James Mitchell, the estate's head groundskeeper, made his way to the old stable block. Princess Anne had asked him to clear out the storage rooms in preparation for renovations, a task he had been putting off for weeks. The buildings, dating back to the 18th century, held decades of accumulated belongings from various members of the royal family who had stayed at the Gloucestershire estate over the years. James had worked at Gatcombe Park for 15 years, ever since Princess Anne had taken him on after his retirement from the British Army. He was a man who valued privacy and discretion, qualities that had served him well in his position. The Princess Royal trusted him implicitly, often leaving him to manage the estate while she traveled for her numerous royal engagements and charitable work. As he opened the heavy oak door to the first storage room, the musty smell of old paper and forgotten memories wafted out. Boxes upon boxes lined the walls, containing everything from old Christmas decorations to riding equipment that hadn't been used in years. James methodically began sorting through the items, creating piles for donation, disposal, and keeping. It was in the third room that he found the old mahogany chest. Unlike the other storage containers, this one seemed deliberately placed rather than simply stored. The brass nameplate on the front bore the initials ALR, and Elizabeth Lawrence Royal. James knew that Princess Anne had been born in Elizabeth Alice Louise, but had taken the surname Lawrence when she married Commander Timothy Lawrence in 1992, her second marriage after her divorce from Captain Mark Phillips. The chest was locked, but the key hung from a small chain attached to the handle. As James opened it, he expected to find more personal memorabilia, perhaps old photographs or letters from Princess Anne's children, Peter and Zura. Instead, the chest was filled with correspondence, carefully organized in manila folders by year and correspondent. Most of the letters were routine correspondence from various royal family members. But, as James carefully lifted each folder to place it in a box for Princess and to review personally, something slipped from between two folders and fluttered to the floor. The envelope was cream-colored, thick paper of obvious quality, and it bore a postmark from August 1997. James's heart skipped a beat as he read the return address written in elegant handwriting. Diana, Princess of Wales, Kensington Palace. The envelope was addressed to Her Royal Highness the Princess and at Gatcombe Park. What made James's hands tremble as he picked up the envelope was not just who had written it, but the fact that it was still sealed. The letter had never been opened. Princess Diana had died on August 31st, 1997, in the car crash in Paris that had shocked the world. This letter, postmarked just 2 weeks before her death, represented what might have been her final written communication to a member of the royal family. But why had Princess Anne never opened it? Had she never received it? James examined the envelope more carefully and noticed that it had been placed inside another envelope, this one bearing a note in different handwriting. Found in the Morning Post delivery pile, August 30th, 1997. Princess Anne was away on official duties. Personal correspondence held as requested. It appeared that Princess Anne had been traveling when the letter arrived, and her staff, following standard protocol for personal correspondence during her absence, had simply held the letter rather than forwarding it. But what had happened when she returned? Why had the letter ended up forgotten in this chest? James carefully placed the letter back in the envelope and sat down on an old wooden crate to consider his options. His first instinct was to take the letter directly to Princess Anne, but she was currently in Scotland for a series of engagements with Save the Children. His second thought was to contact her private secretary, but something about the gravity of the situation made him hesitate. The groundskeeper had lived through the tumultuous period of Diana's divorce from Prince Charles and the subsequent media frenzy that had surrounded the Princess of Wales until her death. He remembered the tension within the royal family, the way servants and staff had been forced to navigate the complex loyalties and relationships that existed between different family members. Princess Anne had always been known for her no-nonsense approach to royal duties and her sometimes strained relationship with the more glamorous Diana. Where Diana had been the people's princess, beloved by the media and public for her warmth and accessibility, and had been the working royal, quietly getting on with her duties without seeking the spotlight. The two women represented different approaches to royal life, and their relationship had been complicated by the pressures of palace life and media attention. As James continued his work that day, the letter weighed heavily on his mind. He decided to finish his assigned task and then carefully secure the letter until he could speak with Princess Anne personally. He locked the letter in his office safe and continued sorting through the remaining items in the chest. What he found next added another layer to the mystery. Tucked beneath the correspondence folders was a leather-bound journal with Princess Anne's initials embossed on the cover. James knew he shouldn't read it, but a loose page had fallen out, and as he bent to retrieve it, his eyes caught a date entry from September 1997, just days after Diana's funeral. The handwriting was unmistakably Princess Anne's, and the few lines he couldn't help but see before quickly looking away spoke of regret and words left unsaid. James carefully placed the journal page back and closed the book, but the implications of what he had glimpsed were clear. Princess Anne had been deeply affected by Diana's death, and there had been unfinished business between the two women. That evening, as James locked up his office, he made a decision that would change everything. Rather than wait for Princess Anne's return from Scotland, he would reach out to her private secretary and request an urgent meeting. The letter from Diana deserved to be handled with the gravity it merited, and James sensed that its contents might be significant not just for Princess Anne personally, but potentially for history itself. Unknown to James, his discovery was about to set in motion a series of events that would captivate the world and reveal secrets about the royal family that had been buried for more than 2 decades. The letter that Diana had written in what would prove to be the final weeks of her life contained revelations that would challenge everything people thought they knew about the relationship between the two princesses and the circumstances surrounding Diana's final days. As James drove home through the Gloucestershire countryside that evening, he had no idea that within days, his discovery would make headlines around the world, and that the contents of Diana's letter would forever change how people remembered both the people's princess and the Princess Royal. The sealed envelope in his office safe contained more than just Diana's final words to Anne. It contained the key to understanding a relationship that had been far more complex and meaningful than anyone had ever realized. The call to Princess Anne's private secretary, Sir Malcolm Henderson, came at 7 o'clock the following morning. James Mitchell had spent a sleepless night considering how to approach the sensitive situation, finally deciding that directness and honesty were the best approach. Sir Malcolm, a seasoned royal aide who had served Princess Anne for over a decade, immediately understood the significance of James's discovery. "I'll contact Her Royal Highness immediately," Sir Malcolm assured James. "Under no circumstances should this information leave the estate until we've had a chance to properly assess the situation. I'll be driving down from London within the hour." Princess Anne was attending a breakfast meeting with representatives from the Scottish Rugby Union in Edinburgh when her encrypted phone buzzed with an urgent message from Sir Malcolm. The brief text simply read, "Diana letter found at Gatcombe. Sealed. August 1997. Need immediate guidance." And excused herself from the meeting, claiming a family emergency, and called her private secretary within minutes. The conversation that followed was conducted in the careful, measured tones that both and Sir Malcolm had perfected over years of handling sensitive royal matters. But beneath the professional exterior, and felt a chill run down her spine. A letter from Diana, written just before her death and never opened, represented a ghost from a past that and had spent years trying to put behind her. I want you to personally collect the letter and bring it to Balmoral and instruct it. I'll cut short my engagements here and meet you there this afternoon. And, Malcolm, absolute discretion on this matter. No one else is to know until I've had a chance to read whatever Diana wrote. Sir Malcolm arrived at Gatcombe Park to find James waiting anxiously in his office. The groundskeeper had prepared a detailed written account of how and where he had discovered the letter, along with photographs of the chest and the exact position where he had found it. The private secretary was impressed by James's thoroughness and discretion. "You've done exactly the right thing," Sir Malcolm told him as they walked to the office safe. "Princess, and we'll want to thank you personally. But, for now, I need your word that this discovery remains between us until Her Royal Highness decides how to proceed." The letter, still in its original envelope, was carefully placed in a secure briefcase that Sir Malcolm had brought specifically for this purpose. As he prepared to leave for the 3-hour drive to Scotland, he couldn't help but reflect on the historical significance of what he was carrying. Diana's death had marked the end of one of the most turbulent periods in modern royal history, and this letter might well contain insights that could reshape understanding of those final months. During the drive north, Sir Malcolm's mind wandered to the complex relationship between Princess and Diana. As someone who had been close to the royal family during the 1980s and 1990s, he had witnessed firsthand the tensions and dynamics that had existed between the two women. And, the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II, had always been known for her direct manner and no-nonsense approach to royal duties. She had little patience for what she saw as the theatrical aspects of royal life and had built her reputation on solid, consistent work rather than public relations. Diana, by contrast, had transformed the very nature of what it meant to be a modern royal. Her natural charisma, emotional openness, and ability to connect with ordinary people had revolutionized the monarchy's relationship with the public. But it had also created tensions within the family, particularly with more traditional members who valued privacy and duty above public popularity. The two women had never been particularly close, despite being linked by Anne's marriage to Diana's brother-in-law, Prince Charles. Their different approaches to royal life, combined with the media's tendency to compare them constantly, had created a relationship that was cordial in public but distant in private. Sir Malcolm remembered numerous occasions when and had expressed frustration with the media attention that seemed to follow Diana wherever she went, attention that and felt detracted from the serious work that the royal family was supposed to be doing. But there had been moments of connection too. Sir Malcolm recalled a conversation he had had with and shortly after Diana's divorce from Charles was finalized in 1996, and had expressed admiration for Diana's work with landmines and her willingness to use her celebrity status to highlight important humanitarian causes. "She may drive me mad with her dramatics," and had said, "but she gets results that the rest of us can only dream of." As the Scottish Highlands came into view, Sir Malcolm reflected on the timing of Diana's letter. August 1997 had been a particularly difficult period for the Princess of Wales. Her relationship with Dodi Fayed was under intense media scrutiny, and there had been growing speculation about her future role and status. Diana had been increasingly isolated from the royal family since her divorce, and her communication with most family members had become sporadic and often strained. What could Diana have wanted to say to and at such a critical time? Had she been reaching out for support, trying to rebuild bridges that had been damaged by years of tension and misunderstanding? Or had the letter contained something more significant, perhaps revelations about her state of mind or her plans for the future? Princess Anne was waiting at Balmoral when Sir Malcolm arrived. The Queen's Scottish estate, with its granite walls and surrounding mountains, had always been a place where the royal family could retreat from public scrutiny and speak freely among themselves, and had chosen to meet there not just for privacy, but because she felt she would need the emotional support that the familiar surroundings provided. "Before I open this," and said as Sir Malcolm handed her the briefcase, "I need to tell you about something I've never discussed with anyone." The Princess Royal's usual composure seemed slightly shaken as she continued. 3 days before Diana died, I tried to call her. I wanted to talk to her about William and Harry, about how we as a family could better support them through what was obviously a difficult time for them with all the media attention around their mother's relationship with Dodie. Sir Malcolm remained silent, understanding that his role was simply to listen. Diana never returned my call, and continued. I left a message with her secretary, but I assumed she was too busy or perhaps didn't want to speak to me. We hadn't exactly been close, and I thought perhaps she saw my reaching out as an intrusion. Then, she died, and I've spent 27 years wondering what might have been different if we had spoken. Anne's hands trembled slightly as she opened the briefcase and removed the cream-colored envelope. The sight of Diana's handwriting brought back a flood of memories from a time when both women had been navigating the complex demands of royal life, often at odds with each other but united in their love for William and Harry. I've been carrying guilt about that phone call for decades, Anne admitted. Maybe this letter will help me understand what Diana was thinking in those final weeks. Maybe it will give me some peace about the conversation we never had. As Princess Anne carefully opened the envelope that had remained sealed for more than a quarter of a century, neither she nor Sir Malcolm could have anticipated the revelations that Diana's letter would contain. The Princess of Wales had indeed reached out in her final weeks, but not in the way anyone expected. Her letter would reveal a side of the relationship between the two women that had remained hidden from the world, and would provide answers to questions that had haunted Anne for nearly 3 decades. The truth about Diana's final weeks, her state of mind, and her feelings about her relationship with the royal family was about to be revealed in her own words, written in the elegant script that had become familiar to millions around the world. But, more than that, the letter would expose the deep emotional bond that had existed between Diana and beneath the surface tension that the public had observed, a bond that neither woman had ever been able to acknowledge publicly but that had profoundly shaped both of their lives. Princess Anne's hands shook as she carefully unfolded the letter. Diana's distinctive handwriting filled 4 pages of cream-colored Kensington Palace stationery, dated August 15, 1997. As Anne began to read, her composure, so carefully maintained throughout decades of royal duty, began to crack. My dearest Anne, the letter began. I know this may surprise you, receiving a letter from me after all these years of polite distance. But there are things I need to say while I still have the courage to say them. I've started this letter dozens of times, but never found the strength to finish it until now. And paused, looking up at Sir Malcolm, who stood respectfully by the window. She wrote this just 2 weeks before she died, and whispered. She was reaching out, and I never knew. The letter continued. I want to begin by apologizing for the years we wasted not understanding each other. I know you thought I was too emotional, too dramatic for royal life, and perhaps you were right. But what you never knew was how much I admired your strength, your ability to carry on regardless of what the world threw at you. When I was drowning in the expectations and the media attention, I used to watch you at royal events and wonder how you managed to stay so composed, so true to yourself. Princess Anne felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. Throughout the turbulent 1980s and 1990s, she had indeed viewed Diana as too emotional, too willing to let her personal struggles play out in the public arena, and had been raised to believe that royal duty meant keeping personal feelings private, that showing vulnerability was a sign of weakness rather than humanity. There's something I need you to know about Charles, Diana's letter continued, causing Anne's breath to catch. Despite everything that happened between us, despite the divorce and all the pain, I never stopped caring about him as a person. I know the family blamed me for airing our private struggles in public, and they weren't wrong. But what I hope you'll understand is that I felt so alone, so desperate to be heard and understood, that the media became my only outlet. And remembered the difficult period following Diana's famous Panorama interview in 1995, when Diana had spoken candidly about her marriage problems and Charles's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. The royal family had been devastated by what they saw as Diana's betrayal of privacy, but, reading her letter now, and was beginning to understand the desperation that had driven her sister-in-law's actions. I'm writing to you now because I've realized that I'm about to make another mistake, the letter continued. The relationship with Dodie is moving too fast, and I know I'm being swept along by emotions rather than thinking clearly. But more than that, I'm worried about William and Harry. They need stability, and they need to maintain their relationship with their father and with all of you. I'm terrified that my actions are going to damage them in ways I can't foresee. Sir Malcolm watched as Princess Anne's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, sadness, and something that looked like recognition. Diana had been reaching out for guidance, for family support, in what she knew might be a critical decision in her life. And I need to tell you something that I've never told anyone, the letter continued. When you and Timothy married in 1992, I was so envious. Not of your happiness, though I was happy for you, but of the way you managed it. A quiet ceremony, dignity maintained, no media circus. You showed that it was possible to find love again without turning your life into a public spectacle. I've been thinking about that a lot lately as I try to figure out what I want my future to look like. The irony of the timing was not lost on Princess Anne. Diana had written this letter just as she was being photographed on Mohammed Al Fayed's yacht with Dodi, images that would soon appear on the front pages of newspapers around the world. The very thing Diana admired about Anne's approach to her second marriage was what Diana seemed unable to achieve for herself. I want to ask you for help, Diana's letter continued, but I know I've probably forfeited the right to your support through my behavior over the years. Still, I'm going to ask anyway because I believe, despite everything, that you care about William and Harry as much as I do. I need someone in the family who understands what it's like to be a woman in this institution, someone who has managed to maintain their integrity while fulfilling their duties. And paused in her reading, overwhelmed by the realization that Diana had seen her as a role model despite their apparent differences. All these years, and had assumed Diana viewed her as uptight and unsympathetic, while Diana had apparently seen strength and authenticity that she wished she could emulate. There's a decision I need to make about my future, the letter continued, and I can't make it alone anymore. The media attention around my relationship with the letter continued with increasing urgency. I know you've never sought the spotlight the way I seem to attract it, and I admire that about you. But I wonder if you could help me understand how to step back without abandoning my responsibilities. How do I protect my sons while still using my position to help the causes I care about? The letter then took an even more personal turn, and I need you to know that if something happens to me, William and Harry will need you, not just as their aunt, but as someone who understands the pressures they'll face. Charles loves them dearly, but he doesn't always understand how the media attention affects them. The Queen is wonderful, but perhaps too removed from their daily struggles. You've lived this life as a woman, as someone who has had to carve out your own identity within the family. Please watch over them. Princess Anne's composure finally broke completely. She set the letter down and walked to the window, looking out at the Scottish Highlands as tears flowed freely down her cheeks. Diana had been asking for the very support that Anne had wanted to offer but had never known how to provide. She called me 3 days before she died and said to Sir Malcolm, her voice barely above a whisper, I was right. She was reaching out, just as she wrote in this letter. And I failed her. The letter concluded with words that would haunt Princess Anne for the rest of her life. I don't know what the future holds, but I want you to know that despite our differences, I've always respected you. You've managed to be authentic in a world that often demands performance, and you've raised 2 children who seem grounded and real despite the extraordinary circumstances of their lives. I hope someday I can learn to find that same balance. With love and respect, Diana. Below her signature, Diana had added a postscript. Please don't feel you need to respond to this letter immediately. I know my timing is terrible, as always. But if you could find time to talk when you return from your travels, I would be grateful. I promise to listen more than I speak this time. As Princess Anne finished reading the letter, she realized that Diana had known she was away on official duties. The letter had been Diana's way of reaching out without putting immediate pressure on and to respond. Diana had been giving Anne time to process what she had written, time to consider how she wanted to respond, time that neither of them would ever have. The revelation that Diana had admired Anne's strength and authenticity, that she had seen Anne as a potential ally and guide rather than a critic, transformed everything Anne thought she knew about their relationship. For 27 years, She had lived with the regret of not returning Diana's final phone call. Now she understood that the call had been the follow-up to this letter, Diana's final attempt to bridge the gap between them, and seek the guidance she so desperately needed. The weight of what might have been different if this letter had reached its intended recipient in time would become a burden that Princess and would carry for the rest of her life. But it would also become a driving force behind changes in how she approached her relationships with the younger members of the royal family, particularly William and Harry, as she attempted to honor Diana's final request in the years that followed. The silence in the room at Balmoral stretched for several minutes after Princess and finished reading Diana's letter. Sir Malcolm watched as the Princess Royal composed herself, wiping away tears and straightening her shoulders in the way she had learned to do countless times throughout her public life. But this was different. This was personal grief mixed with profound regret, and no amount of royal training had prepared her for the emotional weight of Diana's final words. "I need to speak with the Queen," and finally said, her voice steady despite the turmoil she was experiencing. "This letter changes everything we thought we knew about Diana's final weeks. It changes everything I thought I knew about our relationship." Sir Malcolm nodded thoughtfully. "Your Majesty, may I suggest that we also consider the broader implications? This letter could have significant historical importance. Diana was essentially asking for help navigating her role and her future. If this becomes public knowledge, it will reshape how people understand those final months of her life." Princess Anne walked back to the window, looking out at the Scottish landscape that had always provided her with clarity during difficult decisions. "That's exactly why I need to think very carefully about what to do with this. Diana trusted me with these thoughts, even though I never received them when she needed me to. Do I have the right to share them with the world?" The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Queen Elizabeth II entered the room, having been informed by her staff that her daughter had requested an urgent private meeting. At 98, the Queen moved more slowly than she once had, but her mind remained sharp, and she immediately sensed the gravity of the situation. "And Malcolm tells me there's been an important discovery at Gatcombe Park," the Queen said, settling into a chair near the fireplace. "Something involving Diana?" Princess Anne handed her mother Diana's letter without a word. The Queen read it slowly, her expression changing subtly as she absorbed Diana's words. When she finished, she set the letter carefully on the table beside her and looked up at her daughter. "This explains a great deal," the Queen said quietly. "I always felt there was something unfinished about Diana's death, something beyond the obvious tragedy. She was reaching out for family support, wasn't she? She called me 3 days before she died and admitted to her mother for the first time. I was traveling for the Save the Children engagement in Romania, and by the time I returned and saw the message, she was already dead. I've carried guilt about that phone call for 27 years, Mother. Now I know why she was calling." The Queen absorbed this information with the careful consideration that had characterized her approach to family crises throughout her long reign. "The question now is what we do with this knowledge. Diana's sons deserve to know about this letter, but we also need to consider the wider implications." Sir Malcolm cleared his throat gently. "If I may, Your Majesty, there's another consideration. The groundskeeper who found the letter, James Mitchell, is absolutely trustworthy, but discoveries like this have a way of becoming public knowledge eventually. We may need to consider getting ahead of any potential media attention." Over the following hours, the three of them discussed the various options available to them. They could keep the letter private, sharing it only with William and Harry. They could release selected excerpts that showed Diana in a positive light without revealing the most personal details. Or they could make the full letter public as part of Diana's historical legacy. Princess Anne found herself thinking about what Diana would have wanted. The woman who had written this letter was clearly struggling with the balance between privacy and public duty, between protecting her children and using her platform for good. Would she have wanted these private thoughts shared with the world? "I think," Anne said finally, "that Diana would want this letter to serve a purpose. She wrote it because she was trying to build bridges, trying to heal relationships within the family. Maybe this letter can help us understand how to better support each other, how to avoid the misunderstandings that kept us apart." The Queen nodded slowly. "Perhaps you should speak with William and Harry first. They're adults now, with families of their own. They deserve to know what their mother was thinking in those final weeks, and they should have a say in how this information is shared, if at all. The conversation with Prince William and Prince Harry took place 3 days later at Kensington Palace, in the same apartment where Diana had written her final letter to Anne. Both men were stunned by the revelation that their mother had reached out to their aunt just before her death, seeking guidance and support. Prince William, now the Prince of Wales and heir to the throne, read the letter with tears in his eyes. "She sounds so lost," he said. "I had no idea she was struggling so much with the direction her life was taking. I thought she was happy with Dodi." Prince Harry, who had been just 12 when his mother died, was equally moved. "This shows a side of Mum that we rarely saw. She was always so strong for us, so protective. I had no idea she was looking to Aunt and for guidance." The brothers spent hours discussing the letter with Princess and asking questions about their mother's relationship with the family and about the circumstances that had prevented the letter from being delivered. For Anne, these conversations were both healing and heartbreaking. She was finally able to share her regrets about not returning Diana's phone call, but she was also able to tell William and Harry how much their mother had loved them and worried about their future. "Your mother specifically asked me to watch over you," and told them. "I've tried to honor that request over the years, but I realize now that I could have done more." This letter makes it clear that she saw our family relationships as more important than any of us realized at the time. The decision about whether to make the letter public was ultimately made by William and Harry together. They felt that their mother's words showed her humanity and her desire to heal family divisions, qualities that could serve as an example for others facing similar challenges. "Mum always said that she wanted to use her experiences to help other people," Harry said. "Maybe this letter can help families understand the importance of communication, of reaching out even when relationships are difficult." William agreed, but with conditions. "We want to share this as part of a broader initiative about mental health and family support." Mum was clearly struggling with depression and isolation in her final weeks. If her story can help other people seek the support they need, then making this letter public serves a purpose beyond just satisfying curiosity about our family. The decision was made to establish the Diana Spencer Foundation for Family Communication, with Princess Anne as its patron. The letter would be released as part of the foundation's launch, along with resources for families struggling with communication and mental health challenges. But even as plans were being made for the public release of Diana's letter, Princess Anne was grappling with the personal implications of what they were about to do. The letter revealed not just Diana's struggles, but also the missed opportunities for connection and understanding within the royal family itself. The revelation that Diana had admired Anne's approach to royal duty and personal relationships had forced Anne to reconsider her own behavior during those difficult years. She realized that her reserve and dedication to privacy, qualities she had always seen as strengths, had sometimes been perceived as coldness or lack of empathy by other family members. "I spent so many years being critical of Diana's emotional openness," and confided to Sir Malcolm as they prepared for the letter's public release. "I thought she was too dramatic, too willing to let her feelings show. But, reading her words now, I understand that she was just trying to be honest about her struggles. Maybe if I had been more emotionally available, more willing to show my own vulnerabilities, we could have had the relationship she was hoping for." The letter had revealed not just Diana's final thoughts, but also the missed opportunities for healing that existed within families when pride and misunderstanding prevent honest communication. For Princess Anne, Diana's words had become both a gift and a challenge, a final opportunity to honor the relationship they had never been able to build in life, and a reminder that time is precious when it comes to healing family wounds. 6 months after the discovery of Diana's letter, Princess Anne stood before an audience of mental health professionals, family counselors, and members of the public at the launch of the Diana Spencer Foundation for Family Communication. The venue was the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Center in Westminster, chosen specifically because it represented the intersection of public service and personal healing that Diana's letter had embodied. The letter itself was displayed in a specially designed case, with excerpts highlighted to emphasize Diana's message about the importance of family communication and emotional support. Princess and had insisted that the display include context about the circumstances surrounding the letter's writing and discovery, ensuring that people understood both the historical significance and the personal tragedy of the missed communication. Today we launch this foundation not to dwell on what might have been, and said in her opening remarks, but to ensure that other families don't experience the kind of missed connections that can haunt people for decades. Diana's letter reminds us that reaching out for help requires tremendous courage, and that all of us have a responsibility to be emotionally available to those who need support. In the months leading up to this moment, Princess and had undergone what she privately described as the most significant personal transformation of her adult life. Reading Diana's letter had forced her to confront not just her regrets about their relationship, but also her own approach to emotional expression and family.